Finance Committee meeting, the first meeting of January 3rd, 2023. Dr. Jones?
Here.
Counselor Gwaltney?
Here.
Counselor Allemond? Counselor Smith? And Counselor Harden?
Here.
Counselor
Great.
Allemond and Smith are absent, but you have a quorum barely.
Wonderful.
3 present.
Wonderful. Well, I know we want to move on through quickly here. Is there a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes for December 19th and approve them as distributed? Moved by Mr. Harden, second by Mr. Gwaltney. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed by the same sign. That passes 3-0. Starting at the top, 250417, request for consideration of 18th Street revitalization project. I sent out to everybody this afternoon the email from Kale regarding the utility work that needs to be done. Any questions on that for Kale? Any questions? We don't know what the timeline is for the delay, but we want to hopefully move through with it as quickly as possible. So without objection, we'll carry that over. 12/11/22, bid opening set for January 23rd at 4:45 for street signs. Everything is on track.
We did
for
actually
that.
receive a sealed bid already this early. We're holding it.
All right. So we will carry that over pending the bid opening on January 23rd.
Yes, sir.
Okay. 04/12/22, request for consideration of changes to city's workers' compensation, occupational medical clinic. Mr. Wyatt, and then we had talked about this in our last meeting. Harold Parker is here tonight as well to speak to this, and I don't believe we can have everything worked through tonight, but we can certainly hear from you, and then we'll
Yes.
move forward from that point.
I met with the fire department this evening, and I understand some of their concerns, but primarily they know I have to look after the drug testing program. And I got to looking, I was talking to the gentleman that does the video earlier and realized 2023, that'd be 50 years I'd be working for the city.
Wow.
That's hard to believe, huh? In some capacity. Time for me to leave. But anyway, for 30-something years, I've been doing drug testing for the city since we started. I've never had so many issues that I've had with St. Vincent's. I've met with them, I talked with them, and a lot of it is stuff that's DOT violations. And I've tried for 30, going on 33 years to keep the city out of a liable situation by violating DOT standards or anything of that nature. And I think overall we've done pretty good, haven't we, Mike? But anyway, I've talked to them, and a lot of things are just things like they don't get, we have custody control forms that has to be mailed to the MRO within 24 hours. I started calling our third-party administrator like 3 days after a test and said, have you heard anything on these tests? Several departments trying to hire a commercial driver's license guy, and we can't start him until we get the result back. And they said, we've been trying to get our custody control form, because if we give you a result without having that, we're violating a DOT guideline. So that started a big exchange of emails between St. Vincent's and our third-party administrator. But anyway, we've had issues like wanting to do a blood test on a confirmation of a positive alcohol. When you go down and do an alcohol test for a post-accident test, they swab them out. And if that swab turns colors, then you got to do a confirmation test because it says you got alcohol in it. Well, every once in a while, it may give a false positive. So you have to do the breath analyzer. That's the only thing DOT allows. You can't do a blood test, air test, anything. Well, they called me wanting to do a blood test. I says, can't do a blood test. Where's your breath analyzer? They said the machine's broken. So I called the supervisor. Supervisor was outside because they can't drive themselves for a test. And I had him go up and get him, took him to a nearby place and had his breath analyzed, and it was 0. And I happened to be in the city, and I went by that place, and the guy was still there. He come back in to get the paperwork, the supervisor did. And I walked up to the employee, which I've known him for 20 years. And he said, Mr. Parker, I hadn't had a drop of alcohol in 20 years. And I said, I know that. That's why we did the confirmation. And the confirmation was negative. So we'd have been in a liable situation because we couldn't afford to let him work. We'd had to send him home. And then if they'd have done the blood test and it'd been a violation, he could have turned around and sued us or whatever, you know. So a lot of things that they're doing could get us in trouble. I received an email from a police sergeant back in July. It says, I've been sitting in this drug testing place for over 3 hours, going on 4 hours, to give a urine test. And I need to get back to work. So I call them, and after a few minutes, they worked him in. Well, I went back, I acquired a report from St. Vincent that shows all the tests. Some of them that was in question that I complained about is it lists the alcohol test, but it doesn't list the drug test. And so, well, anyway, I got that report in there. So I don't know where their figures are coming from, but I would take this sergeant's name over anyone there on a report. He said by the time he went back there, it was pushing 4 hours. And so I receive complaints all the time. I've got 2 letters in this file right now from Alan Ash from Street and Sanitation Department. One of them is he had to change procedures. Do y'all do some kind of advertising in Berkeley?
Yeah.
He had to change his advertising to recruit employees and tell them to expect over a 3-hour wait for the interview. And he said, we can't get anybody to come in because they can't take off work 3 hours because they're working somewhere now. And one guy called him and says, hey, I got to get back to work, and it's been 2 hours. I'm going to lose my other job. And this guy, Alan and them really want it. He was a good employee, they said. And by the time he got through with the test, because he couldn't leave, if you leave, it's the same as a positive test. And so the gentleman won't answer the phone call no more. He got in trouble from his other job. And so it's making it hard for us to hire somebody too. And I've got from a police sergeant and from a department supervisor where they've been very rude at the desk when somebody get up to ask them a question. And it's one issue after another. And like I said, I've never had any problems like this over 33 years. And it's, you talk to them and they say, well, we only make $10 off of collection. Yeah, but that's why we come to y'all with the workers' comp, the physicals and everything, as you make your money in the long run on all of it. I called Margaret with the insurance, Cobbs and Allen, talked to her about this issue. She said, can we do drug testing just do drug testing elsewhere. And I said, I would entertain that, but a lot of this goes hand in hand, especially an injury or something like that. We sent them down to do drug tests and everything. And she said, we're gonna look and see if we can find somebody like that. So about a week and a half goes by, and I call her back because I hadn't heard anything. And she said, how about Alicomp? I said, well, I hadn't talked to Alicomp. And so I got the letter that Chief Hill sent, and I was concerned about what was in it, so I sent that to Alicomp. And I said, what's these issues here? And their comment was, that has to be on delay from the insurance carriers. And there is some other issues that I talked to the fire department about on workers' comp, that Alicomp, if they went to Alicomp, what Margaret recommended, that they need to be able to step up to the plate and help the fire department with. But I do believe that they've got, I know one incident that they're working on right now with St. Vincent's that needs to be taken care of before any change. And I talked to Chief Hill, and he said he recommended the 31st or whatever if they did do a change. And I said, that's understandable, and that'll give me some time to go down and talk to Alicomp too.
Okay, I appreciate that. These comments are consistent with what Berkeley had expressed in our last meeting, that, you know, it's just unacceptable to wait that long and for people to, you know, not be able to get serviced in even a reasonable amount of time. So,
And I just want to add to that, because my experience, you'll wait that long with nobody in the waiting room. It's not like they're full, like they're occupied. You'll wait an hour, hour or two if there's just one or two people sitting in there.
yeah, that's what happened.
I try to check up if somebody says this and that. And we had somebody that was sent home, and they were sent down to check them out after a bad accident they was involved. They said they really wasn't hurt, banged up or something. They sent him down there, and they sent him home and told him to come back tomorrow. And so I did background check on it and it turned out that they had a water main bust in the clinic. And since the guy wasn't complaining of injuries to the point he really needed to see emergency help, that was the reason why. So, but most of them I check into it, like Robert's saying, and they got some validity on the complaints.
How long have we been with them?
A couple of years.
We did that about 3 or 4 years.
2018, 19.
And the reason I say that is that I know all the hospitals and medical people are just so short-staffed. And so I wonder whether, are we gonna run into this anywhere we go? Or has this always been a problem with the St. Vincent's group?
It's just the only experience I've had with this kind of difficulty is at St. Vincent's. Now, you got to bear in mind all this pandemic stuff and hard to get people to work and stuff. Now, I do know that I made a decision. We were to use their emergency room for after-hours test, and we kept having so many problems of the tester not showing up, not having specimen cups, running out of paperwork. I got where I would order kits myself and take a gallon Ziploc bag, put the kits in there and the paperwork, our forms, for the supervisor to take with them on a post-accident. That didn't work out too good. Hours waiting time. So Battalion Chief Swindle called me one weekend and said, we got problems. It's gonna be hours before they can say. I said, take him to UAB Highlands. That's who we used before we went with them after hours. And they were in and out. And so as far as the drug test, and I don't expect any problems there. Or at UAB Highlands. In fact, I was talking to JJ, and he had two officers that went for a post-accident, and he took them, let them off, and while he was finding a place to park, by the time he found a place to park, they were coming out, ready to go. So their test went, and they worked good with our Safety First, our third-party administrator.
That's what we want. Okay. Well, Mayor, let's have a meeting, and then we'll maybe come up with a recommendation for the next meeting. Does that sound like a plan?
That's great.
So,
Yeah, this needs to be handled.
I agree. I wanted to hear from Mr. Broadhead, or Battalion Chief Broadhead, in case he had any feedback to provide. We got your email this afternoon about your experience, or the fire department's
I
experience.
was only on the workers' comp side, so
Right.
we spoke about this today. I can't speak to the drug testing side at all.
But it's really all together, right? So, or
I'm
it
not
needs
sure
to
if
be.
it has to be, but it is currently. The only thing that St. Vincent's, and there may be another provider that can provide it, their access to emergency rooms and providers has proved to be very successful with us getting people back to work.
Sure.
But I cannot speak to, I know it's a
Okay.
whole picture. I just want you to see that one piece of it that's us. I don't. they've
Maybe
done
we
some
look to
things-
separate it. I mean, maybe that's the answer.
Well, and I question that, because when I heard about it, I went to Kim first, and maybe she treats us different than the rest of the city, because when I had somebody stuck over there, I called and said, hey, they gotta get out of here. Now, I meet with them every single month also. That's probably abnormal, we don't have that many workers' comp claims. We're probably one of the ones just size. We're probably the biggest problem in workers' comp.
So I was told they kept one of mine for 17 months to work a shop.
Got it.
Since we started meeting with them, and we meet with the insurance company every month too, Robert's in on those calls, those have helped out tremendously on workers' comp. One of the things they did, that if we start swarming us, a bigger provider may be able to do, like Brookwood, if we choose to swap, is they agreed to go ahead and do the test, even if it's not approved on the insurance, and so we can put them back to work faster. Alcon may be willing to do that, it's just something we haven't done.
We had a, in fact, when I was, my vacation with the kids, I was walking down the street to Gatlinburg, and I get a phone call, and I don't recognize the number. And a lot of times an officer or somebody may call me that I answer all phones, so you can imagine how many robocalls I get. And so I answered it, happened to be a guy that our kids went to school together, AJ Capri. He said, Carpri, sorry. He said, hey, I do drug testing. I said, really? He said, yeah, I called the police department. I figured they did drug testing. And he said, I asked them about it, and they said, yeah, we already got somebody. And they said, who? And he said, Harold Parker. And he said, I know a Harold Parker that's a retired fireman. He said, yeah, that's him. So he calls me. I said, what kind of testing you do? And they do instant testing. I said, no, it won't work. We follow DOT guidelines. I said, the first company we use for just instant testing, we start them because they pass the instant test. We start them to work, and as soon as we get them to go for a pre-employment test to do our test, 3 out of the 4 failed the test. And he said, okay, we'll talk to you later.
Oh, wow.
So,
All right.
I would just
Yep.
add that any provider that we go to look at, Mr. Mayor, if we can ask them for their data as well, because they should have the same data that St. Vincent's had. I think we're probably gonna see from 2019 to today that all of the timeframes have gone up for these providers because staffing is an issue for everybody. And so we're call outs, people not coming into work. So I would just say that the data is gonna be key. They could bake the data, but we would hope they would provide.
That's what I was gonna say, because the data that they provided us, or y'all 3 weeks ago, was completely different than every story we heard from everybody that was there, so, I mean,
Well,
I get it.
I mean, you could do an analysis then on standard deviations and such, and these could be outlier cases. I mean, depending on how many we're processing through, if they fall outside your deviations, it may not be worth considering.
True.
So,
Thank you for that report. Yep. Okay, so without objection, we'll carry this over and we'll hopefully get to, end of job on in our next meeting. So without objection, we'll carry that over. Moving on, see ya. Okay. See ya. 05-12-22, request to sign contract for services for FY 22-23 for Red Mountain Park. This is budgeted, it's $25,000, I think we have the contract. Are there any questions on this, or is there a move to approve?
I move to approve.
Second by Mr. Waltney, and second by Mr. Harden. Any questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. It passes 3-0.
Mr. Jones, can I have TC come on Monday evening to receive and say thank you to the council before council meeting?
Sure.
That's the timing on that, right?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. White, you okay with that?
Sorry.
I'm gonna have TC McLemore come Monday evening to say thank you, receive a check, and
Oh,
say
sure.
thank
Only
you to
if
the
you take
council.
pictures.
We just don't
I
normally,
will-
we just normally don't cut the checks till after the vote's counted, but we'll go ahead and cut the check and have it there in case y'all, I assume that y'all can have 6 votes.
Do you wanna wait? Do you
No, I
want
mean,
to-
it's just, Robert just have to
What
remember.
if we wait till 2 weeks later?
Yeah, you wanna take, you want me
No,
to
but
come
we
on
can,
Thursday?
I'm just saying that,
Monday's fine.
Okay.
yeah, we
okay,
just say
okay.
technically, we don't, we
We'll
normally.
give it to them before we vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, not before you vote.
Okay, 06-12-22,
Just make it
request for
move.
final budget amendments for outstanding encumbrances. We're still working on
So you're gonna
closing
set that up, Kim, right? Or-
So we'll carry this over, one more time.
6 o'clock. Yeah.
Okay, and then our last item, 14-12-22, request to add C-Spire cabinet site at, Homewood Soccer Complex. This is very similar, or this is really exactly what we did at Central Park. It's the box, it's, and they're offering, $25,000 one time for access to that. Any comments you wanna make?
If you're going in, most of you, it's right there to the right where the chain link fence is. I mean, it's pretty hidden right in there.
So it doesn't get into the.
They're gonna put
onto the
bushes
field.
around
Yeah,
it.
we'll have them, we'll do the same like
Shrubs.
we do on the other one and kind of hide it out. It's not that very big of a box, so it'll be safe very much.
Okay. Any questions?
Can I ask just a quick question? Is this box, I mean, why, is it bigger than the other cabinets they put around town? I guess I'm just curious why they need permission or.
Just on our right of way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
And I guess all the other ones they've just
Yeah.
put in the utility right away, like the other ones around town.
This one's on our city right of way, that's on our property.
Okay.
So it's like the one that's in the parking lot. So I'd say,
Okay.
but you can hide them out if they're not there.
It's actually not in the right of way, it's on the property.
Property
line.
line, yeah, it's on our property.
Okay.
Yeah, in our property.
Right of ways, these are on our
I got
property.
some neighbors that think that everything's on their property. They'd love a $25,000 check. Just kidding.
I hear it every day.
Yeah,
All right,
I know.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Move to approve by Mr. Gwaltney. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Harden. Any other comments, questions? This will go to council. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. It passes 3-0. And with that, we're adjourned.